Did you see any technology? Did you bring back any technology? Was there any technology they found that was extraterrestrial, maybe, that they studied and were able to activate?
Later on, and this was another expedition in the 60s,
Mm-hmm.
believe it was the middle 60s. This was when the Central Intelligence Agency became involved.
There we go.
The CIA sent their own people down there, their own archaeologists, their own Egyptiologists, and they went into some other underground caverns, deep, to find this tunnel system that were miles and miles long. In fact, they weren't prepared for anything like that. But what they found was one item that was somewhat square and had figures on it that they couldn't figure out what these figures were. And it was small and it had something like an antenna on it, almost something like an old brick phone, a cell phone. And they took it back, finally, eventually got it back to the United States, sent it to a couple different laboratories. And one particular laboratory got it to turn on.
Oh, my goodness.
And so there was a power source.
Wow.
Now, what it was used for, maybe a communications device, or maybe something else, maybe some kind of a scanner. These are some ideas. But it was powered, still being powered. Now, if this thing was 2,000 or 3,000 or maybe even 4,000 years old, how could anything maintain power for that period of time? Well, something that we wanted to know and wanted to try to reverse engineer.
Right. How's it harvesting that energy?
Exactly.
Right.
So that thing is sitting on some shelf, probably at Los Alamos or Sandia right now.
They found these tunnels, and we're talking pretty large tunnels, I believe, right?
Yeah, there were tunnels big enough to drive motorized vehicles in them.
Right. And eventually, could you tell us where did these tunnels lead to?
These tunnels led under every single current day pyramid.
Right.
I think if you look in Egyptian literature, there's 118
Right.
pyramids, but these tunnels led to at least 60 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Every one of them had these tunnels. And these tunnels led under these pyramids, and then there was exits that you could then venture outside into the pyramid that was above that tunnel. And there were a number of caverns under there where they found things stored, food. One particular area under one pyramid, they had rice, tons and tons of rice and honey, containers of honey.
Right.
And that's
Still viable.
and still viable. They I don't know about the rice, but they took the honey back and found that after 1,000 years, the honey's still viable. Yeah. And that really shocked me.
Yes, I was reading a report in Los Alamos. They were testing that honey. Even to this day, they keep testing it for some reason, for something, I don't know, for maybe some healing properties or magical properties of some sort. Let's talk about that tunnel that went under Giza.
There was a tunnel under Giza. That was the most advanced tunnel system, not just because of the different caverns within that tunnel system, mm-hmm. but the structure and the construction of this tunnel system. It was far more advanced than any others.
Were they like lava tubes, Richard, or did he explain it was like rock on these tunnels? What was the makeup?
They were created. They were structured. There were brick tunnels that you could see that they were constructed.
Okay.
But one of the questions that was asked, and I don't know that they answered it, was how could some Egyptian civilization 4,000 years ago construct this complicated tunnel system with bricks in the exact same place? The diameters are perfect for movement of big things inside, and they didn't have vehicles back then, but they had sleds. And maybe if the extraterrestrials created these tunnels, the extraterrestrials had some kind of craft, maybe a motor craft or some craft, battery-powered craft, that could move within these tunnels because they're hundreds of miles long and they're so complex. But this one under Giza was extremely complex, and it had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of chambers. And this is below the pyramids up here. All those other chambers are up here. This is under the pyramids, hundreds of feet down, 700-800 feet down, I think they're estimating the depth of these are. In the 60s, the CIA archaeologists took pictures and so forth, and probably movie pictures, and presented them to construction engineers, asking them, how would you make something like that? And they said, well, we would have to dig that out, which would take years, and we'd have to bring all that stuff in, would take more years. He said, we could probably build something like that in 15 or 20 years.
The question is, what came first, the tunnels or the pyramid?
You know, that's the question that I ask. When I heard this information and talking to the person that had access to it,
Right.
that's the first thing I said was, did they build the tunnels first or did they build the pyramids first? Who knows?
No one knows.
But
Yeah.
the extraterrestrials or the Egyptians, who are probably long dead now, I don't know.
Did they find any spacecraft or extraterrestrial craft?
Yes, they did find one in Giza. It was not a very big one, but they found one that had certainly got in there, and they couldn't figure out how it got in there because it was in this cavern that's hundreds of feet under this pyramid, and there's no really exit points except for these tunnels. And these tunnels weren't wide enough or big enough for this craft to be buried there or end up there. So they don't know how they got it in there. And one of the problems is trying to get it out. They tried to disassemble it, but we didn't have any tools to do that.
What did it look like?
It was probably a 10-foot diameter spacecraft. Actually, it was more oval shaped than round shape. They were able to get in it because the bottom part of the hatch was open. There wasn't anything on the bottom of it. So obviously, it probably ended up there, maybe crashed or was disabled, and they didn't want to get it out of there or repair it. But you could go inside that, and there was people CIA scientists that got inside there and looked at it and took pictures, but I don't know what they found because that would have been something entirely different in classification.
And where's that craft now?
Still there.
So what conclusion did the U.S. government make in regards to the pyramids?
Well, that was highly classified, but they came to the conclusion that the pyramids were built or assisted being built by the extraterrestrials. They weren't built by Egyptians. There's no way in the world they could manufacture pyramids or an underground tunnel system that was found. They just didn't have the technology or the know-how, their engineering to build something like that. So they figured that the extraterrestrials came down, whatever race it was, and built the tunnel system first for them, and then eventually assisted them. Maybe there was some assistance with the Egyptians, but they built these pyramids for a particular reason. And one particular pyramid had some type of a sundial on top of it when they first found it in the 40s. I think they'd removed it or somehow that was removed. But and so another thing they found was that some of the pyramids in Mexico aligned directly with these pyramids in Egypt, and therefore they come to the conclusion that the pyramids in Egypt and the pyramids in Mexico were built by the same civilization.
Once again, Richard, it's a very fascinating story, and I'm so glad you got to review that diary. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Emery. It was a pleasure.
I'm Emery Smith, and this is Cosmic Disclosure. Until next time.